You know, if you listen to the left right now, you would think Hitler is president. Apparently. Apparently Hitler is now president. This is what I'm hearing from lots of people in the media, most that lean to the left, obviously, and other people, Hollywood people, people on Twitter, everything, are telling us that Hitler's now president. Not Donald Trump. That Donald Trump is the incarnation of Hitler. The reincarnation of Hitler. This is Beyond Reason Radio. Speaking of Beyond Reason, I am your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We are here live on WFLA once again. We will be back live on Thursday as well at 9 p.m. If you miss any of the show, check out the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. Just download, or you can download the Beyond Reason Radio app, and the podcasts are there as well. And you can listen to the live show on the Beyond Reason Radio app as well, or at beyondreasonradio.com. We're on Facebook Live as well. Just like me on Facebook, or send me a friend request on Facebook. I'll accept it. Or like Beyond Reason Radio on Facebook as well. And producing today, we have the one and only Tom Benson. How are you, Tom?
And the world is better for it that I'm the one and only.
The one and only. Yes, that Tom's in a really good mood today, I've noticed. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but I've noticed you're in a very good mood today.
Well, why not? You know, what the heck? Every day is entertaining.
Trump is president.
That's right.
That's what it is.
I'd be miserable if it was the other way around.
Yeah, I think we would all be a little bit miserable. So if you want to call on anything we're talking about, give us a call, 407-916-5400, or text to 23680, or comment right here on Facebook Live as well. So the main theme that I want to talk about today is how both sides, really, we're going to start with the left, because the left is really doing it, but both sides on how they are overplaying their hand in politics, especially the left, how they're overplaying their hand, because it's just getting crazy. Because Trump did his inaugural address, and we played on the last Beyond Reason show, I talked about what I liked about it and what I did not like about it. I was honest about it, and we played some of it. But what's really more interesting than what Trump actually said is the media, and when I say the media, not all of the media, but the ones that lean left, the legacy media, as they're calling it, their reaction to this and other people's reaction to what he said is, well, beyond reason. It really is. And they're overplaying their hand. They're going too far, and they think they're being brilliant. They think they're making such great points, but they're not. And if they want to get more people on their side, if they want to get more people for their cause, this is not what's going to do it. It's not what's going to do it. It's not going to work. People are going to tune it. I actually think that people are going to start tuning out politics again. You know, things have been so crazy in politics right now, on social media, everything. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's debating it during the election season. But it's just getting to the point where it's getting so ridiculous that I'm afraid people are just going to tune out. They're just not going to pay attention because it's just too far. They're going too far. So here is an example. Here is a montage of how certain people in the media reacted to Trump's inaugural address. This is what they said.
I think it's fair to say this is one of the most radical inaugural speeches we've ever heard.
When he said today, America first, it was not just the racial, the Hitlerian background to it.
I have to say it was surprisingly divisive for an inaugural address. That wasn't the type of inaugural address that was intended to bring this country together.
It carries with it overtones from the 1930s when an anti-Semitic movement saying we don't want to get involved in Europe's war. It's the Jews' fault in Germany.
Okay, that last one. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? This is what I mean. This is what I mean when I say they're just going too far. It's just they're overplaying their hand. They think this kind of stuff is going to work to get more people against Trump, and it's going to have the opposite effect. Either people are going to start realizing how stupid that is, and Trump's going to look like the reasonable one, believe it or not, and they're going to go on his side, or they're just going to tune out politics in general. And I think they're going to tune out because Trump's side is actually overplaying their hand as well. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But I want to address... Well, before I address it, there was somebody else who made a rant similar to what a lot of people in the media said. And it's this whole Hitler. His speech was Hitlerian. It was like Hitler just because he said America first. Oh, apparently he's like Hitler in Nazi Germany, which is just ridiculous. So during the Women's March, which is another example how the left is overplaying their hand with the Women's March, and we're going to talk about some of the Beyond Reason stuff from the Women's March as well. But Ashley Judd, who apparently still acts in movies and stuff, I don't know. I haven't seen any of them recently or anything. But Ashley Judd had this really big rant against Donald Trump during the Women's March at some show during the Women's March or whatever. And the same type comments. This is what she said.
I am not as nasty as a swastika painted on a pride flag. And I didn't know devils could be resurrected, but I feel Hitler
She's like preaching.
In these streets. A mustache traded for a toupee. Nazis renamed the cabinet. Electroconversion therapy, the new gas chambers, shaming the gay.
Nobody's doing electroconversion therapy.
America turning rainbows into suicide notes. I am not as nasty as racism, fraud, conflict of interest, homophobia, sexual assault, transphobia, white supremacy, misogyny, ignorance, white privilege.
And then at the end, she just starts saying, like Tom Benson told me before the show, they're just buzzwords. She just starts saying buzzwords. White privilege, misogyny, sexism, homophobia, racism. What is another word I can just throw in there and call Trump names?
Did you hear what her sister said?
No, I did not.
Her sister's Winona Judd of the Singing Judd sisters.
Uh-huh.
She said, quote, I am not my sister's keeper. The end.
I like that. That's good. That was actually a reasonable thing to say. But this whole thing that Trump is like Hitler, that his speech was like Hitler. Obviously, these people haven't read history. Obviously, people don't know their history on what Hitler actually said, on what Hitler actually did, and what he wanted to do. Now, the first thing I want to do, because before the show, I actually looked into it. I actually started going back, reading some of Hitler's statements, reading some of his speeches, his public speeches. And the first thing I have to say is it's hard to judge Hitler on his speeches, some of his speeches, because he just lied. I realized that reading some of them, he just flat out lied all the time on his speeches. There was some speech he talked about equal rights. Obviously, he didn't believe that. He exterminated a whole race of people and anyone who disagreed with him. He talked about wanting peace with the world, but, there were just lies. But the best example you can do is you can go back to his original words, his original book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. And I'm gonna read some of that to give you an example of just how Hitler really thought and things he really said long before he was ever in power that Trump has never even, there's no comparison. That's what I'm saying. They're going too far. This whole attempt to try to make Trump like Hitler, it's just, beyond reason. I mean, Tom Benson, get the first Trump cut ready for me. Just listen to this part of his speech. They'll ignore this part of his speech. Do you ever think Hitler would say this?
At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. That whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all enjoy the same glorious freedoms, and we all salute the same great American flag.
So Trump right there in that speech, you think Hitler would have ever said anything like that? No, that's not what Hitler believed. Trump talked about no matter what color you are, we're all Americans. That there's no room for prejudice. That is the complete opposite of what Hitler stood for. You want to talk about racism? Hitler would not meet Jesse Owens, the American runner who won the Olympics that year, that was in Munich, because he was black. He wouldn't even meet with him. Wouldn't even see him. He would not allow any minorities to play in the Olympics for Germany that year. So, I mean, there was obvious racism. But you talk about prejudice. This is just a little excerpt from Mein Kampf of what, years before he was even in office, what Hitler thought of Jews. The total opposite of what Trump said in his speech. Like I said, this whole comparison to Hitler is just ridiculous, and they're going too far. This is just a little excerpt from Mein Kampf here of what Hitler thought of Jews. With satanic, he's describing a Jewish person here, with satanic joy in his face, the black-haired Jewish youth lurks in wait for the unsuspecting girl whom he defiles with his blood, thus stealing her from her people. With every means, he tries to destroy the racial foundations of the people he has set out to subjugate. Just as he himself systematically ruins women and girls, he does not shrink back from pulling down the blood barriers for others, even on a large scale. It was this, and it is Jews who bring the Negroes into the Rhineland, always with the same secret thought and clear aim of ruining the hated white race by the necessarily resulting bastardization, throwing it down from its cultural and political height, and himself rising to be its master. That's what Hitler said in Mein Kampf. He bashed Jews and blacks in just that paragraph. And yet I just played for you a part of Trump's speech where he talked about how we need to come together no matter what race you are. So how is that Hitler? How is that Hitlerian? Somebody please explain this to me. It's not Hitlerian. The whole thing is absolutely absurd. It's absolutely. Now, there's another part that people are saying might be Hitlerian. Well, here's another part of Trump's speech, which I will show you as well, is nowhere near Hitlerian, even though the left tries to make him out like Hitler. Can you play Trump cut 2 for me, Tom?
We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow.
Hitler was not about seeking peace with everyone and letting, Germany shine. In fact, his main focus was not only building up Germany, but involving himself with other countries because he believed Germans there were being persecuted in Poland and other places and wanting to expand the territory of the German race. Everything Hitler did was not about Germany first. It wasn't just Germany. People say, well, he's saying America first. That's like Hitler because Hitler said Germany first. Hitler wasn't about Germany first. He was about the Aryan German race first. And that's a completely different thing. It was all based on bigoted racism and anti-Semitism. I just played for you cuts from his inaugural address that are totally against Hitlerian thought. But the left, like I said, they're overplaying their hand. They're going way too beyond reason in their attempt to try to make Trump like Hitler. And people are just not going to buy it. They're just going to, some of the radical leftists will, of course, because they just, they just like to be scared of everything. But they're just not going to buy it. Look at this. This is from Victor Davis Hanson, a quote from him talking about this very thing, this comparison. He's a noted historian, and how the whole thing is just absurd. It's just ridiculous. But the left loves to play this card. He said Hitler's central ethos was hatred and scapegoating of the Jews, whose logical trajectory was the Holocaust. Trump is a strong Israel supporter. His daughter is a Jewish convert. 3 of his grandchildren are Jewish. Trump went to the inner city and sought to reach out to minorities. Hitler attempted a coup in 1923 before subverting the Constitution in 1934. His entire modus operandi was the street thuggery and crude violence. Trump has staged no such demonstrations. In fact, his opposition is more likely to hit the street and turn to violence to express its opposition. Hitler's central foreign policy theme. This is Victor Davis Hanson, noted historian on all this. Hitler's central foreign policy theme was territorial aggrandizement in an effort to reverse the verdict of Versailles. Trump, if anything, is more likely to disengage rather than to occupy or attack foreign countries. Hitler, when assuming power, dismantled all constitutional limitations on the chancellorship. Trump claims he wants to restore constitutionalism. After Obama signed treaties without Senate concurrence, used pen and phone executive orders to override or ignore existing laws, ignore the War Powers Act, gave passes to sanctuary cities, and used federal agencies to bypass Congress to make de facto laws. He makes the point here that there is no way, comparison to history, that Trump is anything like Hitler. Yet I just played for you a montage where, Chris Matthews and Rachel Maddow called him Hitlerian. Ashley Judd said it's like the Nazi movement. And one person said it's like the anti-Semitism in America that happened and not wanting to get involved because they wanted to put America. Just all because he said America first. Shouldn't a president want to put his nation's country's interests first? Isn't that common sense? There's a lot of presidents that had the same similar philosophy. It's just, beyond reason. And we're gonna take a quick break here. In the next segment, I'm gonna go over another criticism of his speech that we heard in that montage, and I'll prove to you why it's absurd as well. The left and the media are going way too far on this comparison, and it's not going to work. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
You want to listen to Beyond Reason Radio live on your smartphone? Download the Beyond Reason Radio app now. Available in the Google Play or Apple App Stores. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Yes, this is another great, fantastic edition of Orlando Smart Talk Radio. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, and like the intro said, I'm the voice of reason. In a world that is beyond reason, and especially in a world where politics is getting even more beyond reason, as the left and the right really, and we'll get into what some in the Trump camp are doing to overplay their hand later. But right now we're focusing on what the left is doing to way overplay their hand in terms of criticizing Trump, in terms of criticizing his inaugural speech, in terms of criticizing his movement. And I debunked the whole Hitler comparison in the first segment of the show. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check out the podcast, anywhere podcasts are available. So we're going to debunk something else that's going on with this whole comparison and this whole criticism, and it's not going to work. It's just going too far. Let's play that montage again, Tom Benson, of the media reaction to Trump's inaugural.
I think it's fair to say this is one of the most radical inaugural speeches we've ever heard.
When he said today, America first, it was not just the Hitlerian background to it.
I have to say it was surprisingly divisive for an inaugural address. That wasn't the type of inaugural address that was intended to bring this country together.
It carries with it overtones from the 1930s when an anti-Semitic movement saying we don't want to get involved in Europe's war. It's the Jews' fault in Germany.
That last one, I just don't even understand it. There's nothing to do. Not wanting to get involved in other countries has nothing to do with race or anything, really. But the one thing I want to address is there was a couple cuts. One was from Chuck Todd from Meet the Press, where he talked about how this was surprisingly divisive. It was a radical speech. It wasn't a usual inaugural address that will bring the country together. It was so divisive because it's just Trump, and Trump wants to be divisive. Except, if you actually go back and listen to other inaugural addresses or read them, a lot of them are very similar to that. It wasn't that surprising. It wasn't that divisive. Some of it was very uniting. But he did talk about what he wants to do, what he thinks the problems are of the country, and what he wants to change. I'm not sure why that's so divisive. What did they want him to do? Did they want him to just not talk about anything? I mean, what did they want him to say? Yay, America. I'm Trump. Goodbye. I mean, I don't really understand. And this is the point I want to make here. Let's go back to 2009 when their messiah, Obama, was inaugurated as president, and see one thing he said. And I don't remember the media saying this was incredibly divisive. This is one part of Obama's speech.
What the cynics fail to understand is that the ground has shifted beneath them. that the stale political arguments that have consumed us for so long no longer apply. The question we ask today is not whether our government is too big or too small, but whether it works, whether it helps families find jobs at a decent wage, care they can afford, a retirement that is dignified. Where the answer is yes, we intend to move forward. Where the answer is no, programs will end.
So why do you think he made the point? And I remember hearing this live, and I thought it was very interesting. He said it's the argument is no longer if the government is too big or too small, but whether it works. Now, why do you think he said that? Well, it's basically a slap in the face to conservatives. Basically a slap in the face to those who believe the government is too big and it needs to be made smaller and it needs to be made less. I mean, that's why he did it. That's why he said it. But do you remember anybody in the media back then saying, wow, how divisive? What if George Bush was right there? What if conservatives were there and they didn't like that? How could that speech unite the country? So divisive. No, they didn't say that. They thought it was the greatest speech of all time or something. And this is what I'm saying. It amazes me how a lot of people, a lot of these so-called pundits in the media, they have no perspective. They don't know history, and they were going too far in their criticism of what, and it's not going to work. They are overplaying their hand, and all they are doing is getting people away from their side. As one Facebook comment, you can comment on Facebook Live. I'm on Facebook Live right now, WFLA Orlando. You can like us there, like us at Beyond Reason Radio as well. One person commented, the left bypasses reason. I think that's a good comment. And then the next example of this, which we're going to get to in the next segment of the show, is the Women's March, because that's all the Women's March was about partisanship and hatred against Trump. And I'll give you an example of why I believe that. And we have so much more to get to. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your voice of reason, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Yes, this is another edition of Orlando Smart Talk Radio, where we talk faith, culture, and politics every episode. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. I thank you all for joining me. If you miss any of the show, make sure to check out the podcasts wherever podcasts are available. And I have Tom Benson producing as well. You can call 407-916-5400, or you can text to 23680. So all I did the day of the Women's March over the weekend, all I did is I posted a question on Facebook. That's all I did. I posted a question. It's amazing how much posting a question can cause a lot of comments. I had 144 comments on this. All I did was post the question.
Who's making lunch?
Yes. Yeah, got 144 comments on that. Yes. No, I posted the question. And I said, honest question. What is the Women's March all about? Is it just hatred for Trump? And I got all kinds of comments. And you know what most of the comments were? Most of the comments I got were from women. And you know what they told me? They have no idea. Most women commented and told me specifically they have no clue what the Women's March is about. I had some girls who liked the march. One said it's about women's rights and equality, and that's pretty much it on that score. What does that mean? Women's equality? Can you be a little more specific?
Even if you accept equality at face value, I understand a lot of pro-life women were not allowed to participate.
And that was the second most comment I got, where a lot of women said all this is about is pro-abortion. And we played audio in the morning show of women. I don't have the audio here, but we played it in the morning show on Good Morning Orlando of women who said you cannot be a feminist and pro-life at the same time. What if the unborn baby's a girl? I mean, I think being pro-life could also be pro unborn women. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing is ridiculous, and it's completely political. Now, I got another person who commented, and she posted this whole thing on what the Million Woman March is all about. And this is what it says. And I got to be honest, it's a bunch of gobbledygook. I don't really understand. It's what it says. It says the Million Woman March was a protest march organized on October 25th, 1997 on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I guess this is like the history of it. I'm not sure this is the same thing, but this is what this person posted. The march was founded by a grassroots activist, human rights activist, black nationalist, freedom fighter. And apparently what the march is about, and I guess this person commented, told me that this march is about the same thing. The march was envisioned and intended to help bring social, political, and economic development and power throughout the black communities of the United States, as well to bring hope, empowerment, unity, and sisterhood to women, men, and children of African descent globally, regardless of nationality, religion, or economic status. One main focus of the march for the women involved was family unity and what it means. Oh, that's out the window. There was nothing about that now. I don't really even know what that's saying. But when you talk about, and by the way, I know black women who have no idea what that march was about. There was no common theme. It was just like, well, women's empowerment. But what does that mean? I had one woman who commented on there, and she said, "I've worked in a man's world my whole life. I've worked in a man's world. I was a firefighter. I got paid just as much. I had just as much opportunity as them, and not sure what I have. We have equal rights now. We have the right to vote. We have the right to work. We have the right of anything. We have the right to run for office. So what is this march about?" And the thing is, what it's really about is partisanship. That's all it's about. It's about partisanship. It's about hatred against Trump. And I actually have proof of this. This is the biggest proof that I found. What this march was all about. It was not about women's rights. It was not about equality. It was not about, I don't know, acceptance. It was about hatred against Trump. And this is the proof I have. Taylor Swift, you all know Taylor Swift, famous singer out there and all that stuff. She tweeted out the day of the Women's March. She tweeted this out. This is all she tweeted out to support the march. She said, "So much love, pride, and respect for those who marched. I'm proud to be a woman today and every day." And that's all she said. That's all she said. She said, "So much love, pride, and respect for those who marched. I'm proud to be a woman today and every day." Okay. Do you think people would be at the march? Women would be supportive of that, right? You think they would all say, "No, that's great. Look, Taylor Swift supports our march, supports us. That's great." No, not so much. She got so much backlash on Twitter for saying that. Now, why? Why? You wouldn't think it would be contradictory at all, but why did she get this backlash? Well, this is why. One person said this. Then why didn't you say anything during the presidential campaign when we could have made it so that this didn't have to happen? Because she didn't say anything during the presidential campaign, she's not one with the march. I thought this march was not about presidential politics. Exactly right. One person said, "Tweet and she back to being a feminist. Yet where have you been?" Same thing. This is all about partisan politics. Another person says, "You got a bad leg or something? Why didn't you march?" So now if you didn't participate in the march, I don't know. Somebody said this. "Thanks for fun." This is all towards Taylor Swift, who said a positive thing on Twitter about the march. One person said this. "Thanks for finally voicing an opinion this election. Perfect timing." Wait. I thought this wasn't about the election. I thought it wasn't about partisanship. It's exactly what it was about. This is proof to me that's all this march was about. The march was about hatred towards Trump. Another person said, "Maybe stop using feminism when it's convenient for you and ignoring it when it's not." So all she does, she tweets out that she supports a march of women because she is a woman, and because she did not say much during the presidential election against Trump, she is now not a feminist. And these tweets go on and on and on against her. And all she did was say something positive about it. Trust me. All this is about partisan politics. And I have an article here that we'll get to in a second about some of the signs, some of the most beyond reason signs that women were holding at the march. But first I'm going to take a call here. Let's go to Zach in Oviedo. Zach, you're on Beyond Reason Radio. What's your take, man?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I know Dario Franchitti and Ashley Judd.
You know them?
Yeah, I know them.
Oh.
Yeah, their marriage broke up simply because of this.
Really?
Well, what happened was she got educated with super liberal, expensive schools and got brainwashed. And
I can see that.
To her. Now, she calls herself a feminist. Here's the deal. Isn't that similar? And if you look at the movement that just happened and their speeches, oh, we won't tolerate racism. We won't tolerate thisism. Well, feminism is a type of bigotry. And, well, she's condoned herself to it. And, ruined her marriage. And let me tell you, when I met her, she's 10 years older than me. She had the wow factor. I'm telling you, beautiful woman. And just to see this happen to her, it's a sad thing. Interesting.
All right. Thank you for your call. So apparently she just got brainwashed by liberal institutions. All right. I believe it. That's what it sounded like. Okay, so Tom Benson, are you ready for some of the most beyond reason signs?
Absolutely.
From the Women's March? Okay, here's one. I actually saw this on social media as well. It said, this is what it says. I dream women will one day have the same rights as guns.
I did see that.
That was a popular one. And then, of course, people posted, so you don't want to be allowed in polling places, schools, government buildings, etc. License required to be in public. Some sizes illegal.
Yeah, there you go. Sure.
The ignorance of that. Another person, a lot of these signs says, keep your laws off my, and it has a cat there.
Yes.
Has a cat. So you can interpret what that that means. What laws are put their hands on there?
I guess
I don't understand.
If you read into it, I guess they don't want any laws to be enacted that will, touch their what.
What do they think?
Well, they don't want they don't want the white men in government telling them how to take care of their bodies. The only thing is they depend on the government for a lot of other things.
Well, it's the hypocrisy there is amazing too, because we don't want the government to tell us how to take care of our bodies, but we want the government to pay for our contraception.
There you go.
How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. Here's a sign. This sign's great. We are the granddaughters of the witches you weren't able to burn. I think that might actually be true. I'm just saying.
Man.
And there's a sign.
And their husbands know who they are.
Here's a sign that was being held up by a man at this march. It said, "Trust women more than men." So I guess this was an anti-man march now.
Back in the day, you would play guitar to meet chicks, in high school or college. Now I guess you just go to women's marches. Think about it.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point there. I just don't know if I would want to date any of those. Here's another one. Feminazis against actual Nazis. So the whole Nazi thing is just so, and some of these I can't say because they're very inappropriate. There are a lot of vulgar ones there that I just can't say. I'm like scrolling through. I can't say some of these.
Oh, sure. I understand.
I can't say that one. Another one says stay nasty. So see, that goes back to Trump's comments when he called Hillary a nasty woman. Mm-hmm. He wasn't saying all women are nasty. That's how somehow that was how people interpreted that. Not sure how exactly that happened, but it was just, there are some nasty women out there, just like there are some nasty men out there. The whole thing, I can't say, there's so many cuss ones. There's a sign that says, Trump, you are poor. I don't really know what that means. Let's see. I'll see you nice. Here's a sign. It says, "I'll see you nice white ladies at the next Black Lives Matter march," right?
Yeah, right.
So there's some Beyond Reason signs.
You know, one explanation I heard for the march is that a lot of these women were expecting Hillary to be inaugurated that day and that weekend. So they had transportation arranged. They had hotels arranged. That's why so many of them were in D.C. to begin with.
Well, and that's another thing, how somebody was, I forget who said this, but they were talking about how these women were complaining about lack of rights, but they all had money and time and the ability to buy airplane tickets, book hotels, and march freely in D.C.
Tell that to women around the world who are being suppressed.
Yeah, I know.
And oppressed.
We have no perspective. I swear, I think one of the biggest problems in this country is we all just want to complain. You know what I mean? Like, that people just want to complain about stuff and they want to protest just because it's cool, I guess. Even though we have better than any people in the history of the planet, all we want to do is complain about what we don't have. It's crazy stuff. Okay, so I spent the first 48 minutes of this show talking about how the left has gone too far and how it's not going to work and how they're just getting people out. People are not going to buy into this. But unfortunately, Trump is also doing the same thing. He's starting to go too far, and it's actually completely unnecessary. And I'll talk about that next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Yes, and it has been Trump's first week, just a couple days, in the White House. By the way, this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, as you all know. And it's been Trump's first full week in the White House, and he's gotten a lot done. Today, he actually signed executive orders, once again allowing for the Keystone XL pipeline and the other pipeline in the Dakotas that was being protested against. And the environmentalists are just so upset at that, and I could care less. And then, but there was something he did yesterday. Actually, I think this was his over the weekend. One of his first things he did. He signed an executive order, freezing hiring of all federal employees. And the bureaucrats, they're so upset. I know. How are they going to handle this? Oh, the bureaucracies. How can we go on if we can't hire more people? Yes, I know. Yes, as one of his first acts Monday, Trump signed an executive order freezing most federal hiring outside of the military mostly. And the bureaucrats are now talking about revenge against the government because they just don't know. Politico was reporting this, by the way, how they can't get anything done.
A lot of them could go on a work stoppage and no one would realize it.
It's exactly that is the best point. So I obviously I don't feel sorry for them. They get their sad violins, but there you go. Okay, so we talked a lot about how the left has just gone way too far in criticizing Trump. But the problem here is Trump is going way too far in counterpunching. The biggest example of this is, of course, the crowd size issue. The whole thing was weird. It was just like, so Trump gets his press secretary to go out there and basically play a mine is bigger than yours game. Mine's bigger than yours. Okay. For one, it wasn't true. It was obvious, but there was plenty of reasons why. It doesn't take away the fact that you're president. Why bring attention to it? Now, there's a lot of things that he's doing this stuff on purpose. He's distracting on purpose. There might be some truth to that. I'm not going to lie. I think there would be better ways to do it. So that was the one thing. It was just like, why would this mine's bigger than yours contest, ratings contest? I just don't. It was unnecessary. There are so many things that you can legitimately criticize the media and stuff on. And this wasn't one of them. Nobody cares. Now, I will say that the media never brought up the crowd size comparisons between Obama or any. You know, if Obama had less people, they were never going to bring that up. I think he had less TV ratings than Reagan, but they would never bring it up. So that's a good point. But now he's going on this whole illegal immigrants. He would have won the popular vote if 3 million illegal immigrants didn't vote. And actually, here's Sean Spicer, the press secretary, was asked about this today, and once again, he defended Trump's position. This is what he said today.
Does the president believe that millions voted illegally in this election, and what evidence do you have of widespread voter fraud in this election, if that's the case?
The president does believe that. He has stated that before. I think he stated his concerns of voter fraud and people voting illegally during the campaign. And he continues to maintain that belief based on studies and evidence that people have presented to him.
But exactly what evidence? Speaker Ryan today said there's no evidence. The National Association of Secretaries of State say that they don't agree with the president's assessment. What evidence do you have?
As I said, I think the president has believed that for a while based on studies and information he has.
There is no evidence. And I posted, if you friend me on Facebook, I posted an article today because some people were saying, well, there's a Gallup poll that talked about voter registrations and some other voter fraud problems. But even that showed no evidence that illegal immigrants voted in that huge of numbers, and it swayed the popular vote towards Hillary Clinton. There's no, why bring this up? Why? There's so many other things. You're doing a great job. You have union leaders right now praising Trump. Union leaders praising a Republican president. Bernie Sanders actually praised him for repealing out of TPP. You have a great cabinet. Conservatives love your spending cuts ideas. I love your spending cut ideas. Your federal freeze, like I said, great stuff. Other executive orders. He's going to work on immigration soon. That just broke this evening. Great stuff. Why get into this? What are you distracting from? It's this kind of stuff that it hurts your credibility. You could become a very popular president. I truly believe that, but there's no evidence. Now, do I think voter fraud exists? Of course. And it could be a problem in really close elections and really close areas. But from everything I've seen, the reason why Hillary won the popular vote is because she won the majority of votes in the state of California and New York. And she won mostly in L.A. County and New York City. And those cities have millions of leftists that congregate together and they voted for Hillary. That's pretty much it. In the popular vote thing's kind of a dumb argument anyway, because who knows? If we had a popular vote system, there could be Republicans in a lot of these leftist states that might not vote because they don't think it matters, that might vote. Who knows? There would have been a totally different election. But this is what I'm talking about, Trump going too far. The left goes way too far, but Trump, because he has to counterpunch, that's his philosophy. Counterpunch no matter if it's true, no matter if it's right. So, just saying, that was my little rant. This is Beyond Reason Radio. If you miss any of the show, check out the podcast at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app. We will be back Thursday night, same time, same place, and I will catch you guys then.
That nothing comes from indifference.